Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Top Marketer. Today we have Shane Barker. Shane is a digital marketing consultant who specializes in influencer marketing, product launches, sales funnels, and website conversions. He has consulted with Fortune 500 companies, influencers with digital products, and a number of A-list celebrities. Shane is developing an influencer marketing educational platform to help brands and influencers learn how to create successful campaigns and make it a win-win for both sides. Shane, welcome to the show.
Hey, Richard, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited about today's interview.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your company. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question of the day, man. I've been in the digital space for just over 20 years, probably almost sneaking up on 25. So I started when I was, I think, 3 years old or something like that, give or take a few years. I'm not good with numbers either. Would be a terrible accountant, probably a better digital
3 years.
marketer. But yeah, I mean, I was in a diaper. I was way ahead of my time. But yeah, I mean, I've been in the space, like I said, a long time, 20 something years. Started off in building websites and SEO and content and, kind of going through this whole thing, this transition. And really, we've jumped into the influencer marketing space. So my company is Shane Barker Consulting. I have a number of other companies that go into the parent company, but mainly what we do is really content marketing. So we write content for a number of different websites, a lot of big websites that we ghostwrite content for. And then I personally, myself, am an author, and I write for about 120 different websites. So we have a great network that we've built up over the last 8 years. I know a lot of editors. And so we write about, once again, influencer marketing, about SEO, about, any kind of conversion-based stuff, anything like that. And then on the influencer side, I've touched on, I teach over at UCLA. I teach a personal branding and how to be an influencer course there. And then I have two things that we do in regards to that. We'll probably touch on this in a little bit. We do workshops for brands to be able to learn how to work with influencers the right way. And we'll talk about that as we answer some of these questions further. And then we're working on a course right now that should be out in the next little bit less than a month. If you want to be an influencer, on how to put that personal brand together and how to take it seriously so you can get the big, brands and get the big companies to give you the sponsorships and the money.
I know you've been pushing you're putting a lot of focus on influencer marketing. So for those who don't know what influencer marketing is, you want to share, quickly what's influencer marketing?
Yeah, so influencer marketing really is having your product or your service and finding people that have influence through social platforms, right? So Instagram being an example, you have Snapchat, you have YouTube. These are individuals that built up some type of community, right? So the example I always use is like, somebody that maybe is a yoga instructor in Los Angeles and you have a yoga product, right? That's a perfect fit for you, right? You have to assume you look at their content and there's somebody that's always talking about yoga and what they do and where they're outside and doing this and drinking their chai latte with their pink poodle and they're on private jets and all this influencer type stuff, right? And then we go, okay, I want to be like Jennifer when I get older. And so we say, okay, what do we need to do if I'm a product or a service and she has good engagement? What do I do about talking to Jennifer about talking about our product and how do we go about presenting it so that it can be a win-win on both sides?
Okay, that's awesome. Now, typically, people confuse influencers between, the Kardashian influencer and then the person who has 100,000 followers and the person who has 10,000 followers. Do you classify them accordingly, or what's kind of like the area of the influencer work focused on, which kind of range of following?
Yeah, one of the things is I think it's a common problem with brands is they always look at, they don't always, but a high percentage of the time they go, well, you're an influencer because of your follower count. Right. And so you have the Kardashians of the world or whoever this is, and they go, oh, you have to have 1 million followers to be an influencer. And that's just not true anymore. In fact, we've seen if you work for influencers that have a smaller count, and let's say it's 10,000 people. I mean, those 10,000 people could be 1,000 times more engaged than somebody that has 1 million. Right. Because the idea of it is that if I'm working with an influencer and they have 10,000 followers, and let's say they get, they put the post up and let's say they have 50 comments. Well, they have time to go to respond to those 50 people, right? Because now that's engagement, right? If you come into a restaurant or something and you come up to me and you start talking and I don't respond to you, then that's not engagement, right? You're like, I just said something to him and he didn't say anything back. That's kind of weird. So the Kardashians being an example of that, like Kim Kardashian isn't going to put a post up and respond to 10,000 comments, right? That's just not going to happen. So there's less like engagement there. You're not going to see those types of numbers. So you're also not going to be paying Kim K type money, right? Kim K is going to be asking whatever $500,000 for that, and you're going to pray that it goes well. When you work with smaller influencers that have a smaller following, we've seen that sales and stuff increase exponentially because once again that engagement is there, and once again you don't have to spend as much. I mean, what we care about is ROI, right? So if you go a Kardashian route and you're paying $500,000, I'm hoping that I get at least $500,000 in sales, assuming that's one of your KPIs. When you work with micro influencers, the budgets are smaller. but you're also going to be putting it over, let's say, 10 different influencers, because the idea is who's moving the needle. Like, this is no different than PPC or anything else. Like, we want to try 10 different influencers. One's on Instagram or two's on Instagram. We have some on YouTube. We have some on Snapchat. We have some bloggers that are going to write about some content. We reach out to some reporters. Everybody puts out their some specific type of content, and then we see what moves the needle, right? That's what it comes down to. Influencer marketing is not just hiring one person on Instagram, doing one campaign, and then going, God, influencer marketing doesn't work. It's a strategy, right? Back 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when I was writing about it, you could just talk about creatine and they hold the bottle of creatine with a fitness influencer and you'd have sales come through. It's different now. It's a frequency deal, and you have to make sure that you're hitting them from multiple angles.
Okay, very good. Now, people or companies always wonder, am I the right fit for influencer marketing? You want to give us a little kind of background of what type of company can find success in influencer marketing? B2B, B2C, e-commerce. What's your take on that?
I mean, really, I think anybody can be a good play for influencer marketing. I mean, influencer marketing is interesting in the sense that there's millions of people that are influencers that have some type of community and then have some influence over their community. So now, obviously, there's some companies that are better than others, right? I mean, you have lifestyle type stuff. You have people that, with fitness, and you have anything, in the like travel space. Obviously, is big on Instagram. YouTube is going to be good for like unboxing or for a demonstration type product. So it really just depends on what your product or service is and where you think you could potentially be a good fit. Like the key to this whole thing is knowing who your core audience is, right? And who you think is going to buy your product. If you don't know that, then you can go to any influencer and it's just not going to go well, right? I mean, it's the same thing with PPC. Like, if you don't know who to go after and you go after the wrong audience, you're a yoga product and you're going after, I don't know, like some other kind of audience, and obviously it's not going to be a good fit there. Influencer marketing is no different, right? Mm-hmm. So you say, okay, great, my client is, or my avatar is going to be, it's women between 16 and 24, and they live in California, or whatever this is, right? Because it's a beach style product or whatever. Now you understand who that is. Now you want to go find those influencers with that type of following. You go run some campaigns with these different influencers on different platforms. You find out who's moving the needle. Great. Now we take our budget from those 8 and then you put it into these 2. So now we know, once again, who's moving the needle.
All right. So that kind of branches out to this question of, okay, how do I find this person? Are you doing this manually to go out and look up the following or find the influencer, look up their followers and see what kind of demographics? So there are some tools that you're actually using to kind of give you that aggregation and helps you make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of tools out there. I mean, one of the tools that we use is Grin. That's grin.co. It's a tool that we've been using for managed services.
Paid?
I mean, that's paid. There's also like influence.co is another one where you can go find influencers on there.
Okay. And you kind of do, I'm sorry to interrupt, you do search based on industry. They give you the results. I don't know if you can refine it by geolocation. And then it gives you some potentials of some influencers you can work with. Is that how it works?
Yeah, and you can also, you can do that as well. And there's also, if you don't have a heavy budget, there's actually products out there where you can go and take a look at influencers and pull reports on them. Like Hyper Auditor is one of them where you can go and take a look at, you can go run some, hey, let's say you're this influencer and this is, or if you're a brand, you can go in and take a look at their follower accounts if they have fake followings and stuff like that. Or you can even go on Instagram and go do a hashtag search. I think one of the biggest things that a lot of brands miss out on is just going into your own audience. Like if you go into Instagram and you got 1,000 followers, like go look at those 1,000 followers. Like if they're following you, they obviously like your product or service, right? And so a lot of people miss out on that of like, you might have an influencer that already is following you. Like why go and pitch them somebody brand new if you have somebody that already knows your product and service and loves it? So, start locally and try to figure that out. One thing that you have to be careful of with software is great for analytics and going and pulling a list, but you have to. There's nothing nothing better than an eyeball test, right? Going and looking at that individual's content, because if it says they have a high engagement rate, then you go and you look at it and they have 10,000 emojis. That's not engagement, right? I mean, that's the software thinks that it is because somebody's saying something or something's happening.
Sure.
But that's not true engagement. So when you're doing this, one of the things that people miss on influencer marketing is that it does take time, right? It's not just picking one influencer and sending them a product and then having them send it out and then you count the money. The idea of this is that it's a frequency deal, and so when you're going and looking at these influencers, you really should be looking at this as a long-term thing of like, hey, I interview all my influencers. Like anybody that does a campaign for anybody that we work with, I interview them because I want to know where your head's at. I want to know if you know a little bit about the company. I want to know what you've done. I mean, we're committing to a relationship here, right? Hopefully a long-term one. And so for me, it's important to know that I can find anybody will take a buck from me, right? Nobody has a problem with that, right? But I want to find the person that says, hey, I know what you guys are doing. I followed your company for a long time. I love the fact that you guys give 10% back to this nonprofit, blah, 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 blah. Like they've really done the research. I mean, you know, if I was going to go get a job with you, Richard, and would you just send me an email and I'd send you my resume and you're like, yeah, Shane seems like a good fit. Let's just hire him. Like, no, we're going to talk it out, right? I would hope. Or we would have some kind of an interview process of say vetting to make sure that I'm a good fit, that I'm not just a resume, and you know that there's other things that are behind that. So really, the vetting of the influencers, I think, is an important process that a lot of people miss out on.
That's great. So do they have conversations like this? Because a lot of companies, when they ask us about influencer marketing and what our opinion of it, because we don't, that's not what we do, but they say, you know, I try to approach all these different influencers and they're not responding. Is this because they're trying the wrong channel to approach them, or they have to go through the grin.co or influence.co, or what's your recommendation on getting answers?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you have to realize that if you're, I mean, it depends on what you're sending out. So if you send out 10 emails and you get no responses, I mean, that's not a huge, you know, set of emails that are going out. If you send out 100 and you get no responses, I would look at what you're pitching, right, and how you're phrasing that. Are you including all the information? If they're a well-known influencer, if they have a good following and they seem to work with a lot of brands, you know, as a person that's doing the pitching, you really should give most of the information of what they need, because nobody really has time to go back and forth with 20 emails to find out what kind of campaign you want to do, what your budget is, when is it going to go out, like that kind of stuff, right? You should have something that says, go ahead.
So yeah, on that, so give me like a quick example. What would like a perfect pitch for an influencer look like? Maybe in like a small 2 sentences.
Yeah. So what I would do is, first of all, I would look into the influencer, right? So if you say, hey, because the influencers are putting their stuff out there, when they had a baby, when they started their company, if they're married, where they went traveling to. So I would say, hey, Jennifer, first of all, I wanted to say, hey, congratulations. I know that you had a baby 3 months ago. And I know that you got married about a year ago and that you were just in Bali. So I'm assuming you probably just got back from vacation. Looks like you guys had an epic time. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Shane Barker. I own XYZ Yoga products. We have a patent on the product that's going to be coming out in about 4 months. We're looking to partner with influencers. There's a number of different ways that we can work together. It can either be a pay-per play, it can be an affiliate type model. But what we're looking to do is looking for long-term ambassadors. So why don't you reach out to us and see, you know, if you're interested in it, maybe we can talk about next steps.
Perfect.
Right. So I went in, I built some like, hopefully some rapport, because I've talked about them, right? Because the problem is most brands send out 1,000 emails to 1,000 influencers.
Cold.
Just cold as can be. And of course, you're going to find somebody that's going to take the money. Like if I said, I'm on a dating site and I'm like, hey, I like blondes, and I said I have $1 million, and I send out that email, of course I'm going to get a few people that respond that have blonde hair, right? So the idea of this is like, you really want to be specific. You want to go after the specific influencers and say, I know why you're a good fit. This is the reason you're a good fit. This is what we're looking to do. And then you can set up a call with them and say, you know, we've worked with influencers. We've seen this kind of success here. This is what we've seen. But we're also really interested in the kind of content that you're producing and how we can kind of put that together. What would you see if we had a budget of $2,500? What kind of content would you see working well with your audience? Right? Because I've got an idea of what I think will work, and we've kind of seen some stuff in the past, but I'm reaching out to you because your content's phenomenal, and I want to know what we can do to, like, once again, develop a great strategy, you know, for your audience.
Now you said $2,500. Let's talk about pricing a bit. What's the average price point you would spend per influencer? I'm talking about the scale that we're not the Kardashians, right? And what the negotiation process looks like. I know it's all about making a deal here. So walk us a little bit through like a perfect negotiation and a price range.
So really the price range is always difficult to say because every influencer is different, right? So it's, you know, you can look up websites and stuff that'll say, hey, if they have this following, this is what you should pay. It really comes down to what you think is fair, right? So the analogy I always use is if I have a Babe Ruth baseball card and it's signed and there's only 2 of them in the world, and somebody says, hey, that's worth $5 million. Like that's the issue is I have to find somebody that's willing to pay $5 million. And if somebody comes to me and says, hey, Shane, I know you've got that card. I know it's worth $5 million. I'd be willing to give you $500,000 in cash, right, in a briefcase. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome, right? Not to pay taxes. Just kidding, I pay taxes, but I'm just saying if you chose to do that.
Public, be careful.
So, yeah, I know. I got to be, especially because everybody's going to hear this. Just kidding, IRS. I do pay taxes. You can even look into it. So yeah, so right, so you got that $500,000 or whatever this is. If I think this is a good deal because that card is really making no money for me, and I'm probably not going to find somebody that's going to pay 5 million, then it's a good deal. And so influencer marketing is the same. So if you go and you talk to an influencer, you say, hey, I've got a budget of $2,500 or whatever that number is. If they come back to you and say, hey, I'd be willing to do a YouTube video, I'd be willing to do a blog post and be able to do 2 things on Instagram stories, and then you have their media kit and you kind of understand what kind of potential eyeballs can happen from that, right? What kind of traction you can get from that. And you go, okay, for that $2,500, my yoga mat is $100, so I really have to sell 25 of those yoga mats to break even. But I think because of this content and because the blog article has the potential of becoming #1 because they're very influential in the space, you have to evaluate that as a brand, right? And say, I think this is a good trade of $2,500 for these 3 things that this influencer is going to do. It comes down to what you think is fair, right? And so once again, websites, you can go and look at what you think, but be very careful of paying somebody on their follower count, right? Because follower count is something that's where we've run into fake followers, because brands will say, hey, if you have 10,000 followers, we'll pay you $1,000. If you have 25,000, we'll pay you $5,000. But if you have 1 million, we'll pay you, 50 grand. And then what happens, right? People go get fake followers because they want to get the big payout. Not everybody, but the idea of this is, look at the media kit will tell you, hey, how much traction they're getting from each one of their platforms. Put together a strategy of all the different things that they have access to, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, their blog, whatever that may be, and then figure out if it's worth it for the price you're willing to pay.
Very interesting. So you're saying not to only focus on pushing something to, let's say, an Instagram account, but also try to get some blog presence on that influencer's site, maybe share across not only Instagram, but also other channels if they were present on other channels?
Absolutely. Yeah, because the thing is, Instagram is awesome, right? We've seen great traction with it, but Instagram goes away, right? I mean, once your post is done, it goes down, and then 3 weeks later, you're at the bottom of the post. You're not getting as much traction from it, unless you're doing some kind of paid ads, which you should be doing to promote you and the influencer. I mean, a blog post, if you become #1 for a great keyword, so I have a yoga instructor that's out of Los Angeles, and she has great content, and we become #1 for XYZ yoga mat, which is what we're coming out with, and that gets 5,000 searches a month. Well, guess what? Now for that search, that thing can continue to produce revenue for you. So you have to look at this as a strategy. It's putting all this stuff together. It's not one post on Instagram. It's not one YouTube thing. You want to go to the individual, says, listen, I get it, and this is what I think we can put together. Some influencers have multiple platforms but don't understand how to put that together. So you as a brand have to say, okay, what do we need to do to make this a collaborative effort of, like, hey, it's a video, hey, it's this, hey, it's that. Like, what would that cost for us to be able to put that type of a campaign together? And that's where it becomes valuable, because you never know what's going to go, right? The blog article could go great. It could not go great. Instagram could go phenomenal. It could not go phenomenal. But if you're not putting all your eggs in just one basket, one picture, you're doing, like I said, multiple things on multiple platforms, that's when you have the likelihood of things going well.
Interesting. Now let's talk about the KPIs that you have to track. Let's say you've identified the right influencer or a couple, and you've done a deal with them. And I know we didn't touch on the actual margins that you think is fair, but let's assume it's 2,500. I've heard 2,500 a couple of times.
Right.
And now it's time to launch the campaign. What do you say is, what would you say are the metrics or KPIs I should be looking at? And doing some back of the napkin calculation of, all right, I have to sell 100 yoga mats, but would you say I have to also price the traffic I'm getting from this, impressions, conversions? Give me your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what a brand should think about that. Like, what in regards to what am I looking for, right? Is it sales? Is it going to be mentions? Is it going to be, I know people that have partnered with influencers that have really celebrities that have crazy followings. They know that they're never going to break even on that. But the idea of it is to use that, like an example, Snow. A good friend of mine, Josh, that owns Snow, Josh and Anthony that own Snow. What they've done is they partnered with Mayweather. Well, I know they spent a huge amount of money on Mayweather. They know they're probably not going to break even on that, but they agreed to put him on the website. They have a video of him using the product. So over time, they'll leverage that for other celebrities to say, this is who we've worked with. This is the kind of people that run in our circles, right? For them, it wasn't sales. They're like, we won't make that money back that we paid with Mayweather, but what we will make back is over time is people understanding that these are the type of caliber of people that partner with our company. So that's what you really have to look at, is like, what is your goal? Is it sales? Is it going to be mentions? Is it going to be, higher, increase your social media following? Like, and then are you going to be able to, use these influencers or this content, the content that the influencers created on your social media, on your website, be able to do social proof, get them as a testimonial. Like, that's where we talk about negotiations of the contract, what needs to be included in there. And for the influencer needs to look at, like, what else, like how much am I going to let them use that content? Like, if they use it over this many times, they want to do a paid ads, should I be paid for that? Should I be able to monetize that? So there's a lot of different things that brands and influencers don't know what to negotiate, and that's where we help on the education side.
Oh, perfect. I think, from the call to action perspective, now I got my KPIs in place. Do you recommend doing like an isolated landing page that drives most of the traffic from the influencer to a landing page, or do you recommend just sending them to, let's say, my e-commerce site or my website?
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to isolate it like that. It's good to use coupon codes, Jennifer 25, so people use it, or you develop out a landing page that they can send them to, specifically that anybody that goes to that page will be generated because of the traffic by that influencer. It is better to segment that, right, or have some kind of affiliate relationship there, because now you know who's moving the needle, right? If not, then it's very hard to attribute. If you have 10 influencers, and we've had this with campaigns in the past, 10 influencers post stuff on the same day and sales of, doubled and tripled, that's awesome. But the problem is, for me as a marketer, like, my client loves it, but for me as a marketer, I'm like, I don't know who moved the needle. Was it influencer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10? Right? And so now we don't know. And so it's like, how do I attribute that back to? If I have them going to a specific landing page, if I have them using a certain affiliate link or using a coupon code or some kind of a code, now I know who's moving the needle, and I can go, okay, I can take my budget from John, Mike, and Emily and put it into Renee, Tanya, and Jose.
And there are many ways to do that, whether you're using UTMs, whether you're isolating it on the landing page, whether doing referral codes. Do influencers agree to work on a referral code model, or they usually want a hybrid of some kickbacks and some initial fees, based on your experience?
Just depends on the influencer. Of course, every brand wants it to be an affiliate relationship, right, or free product, and not every, but all, influencers go, I don't really always want that. This is the thing. If I was an influencer and I was heavy in the yoga space and I had 500,000 people, and I would want an affiliate relationship, knowing that I can move the needle, right? So there is something to that. Or what I would do if I was an influencer and I would say, hey, I would need you guys to cover my, like, for my videographer, my photographer, all this kind of stuff usually costs $1,000. Like, guys, I want you to cover that. And then I want, 50% of all the sales that come through. And I know that I can sell 500 yoga mats, right? Okay. I know there's a risk there, but I also know there's a reward as well. It just depends on how well they know their audience and how much they think they can move the needle, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Like, what do we think, I can do as an individual? And I feel confident because this product's perfect for my audience. And that's why an affiliate relationship makes more sense.
Perfect. All right, I'm gonna wrap up with a question to you. Who's your favorite marketing influencer?
Man, my favorite marketing influencer. So I'm a fan of Neil Patel's back in the day, just because of, I think he really started the content thing of, like, really rating heavy content and doing a lot of inbound marketing. So I'm a fan of Neil in that sense. Now I'm a little bit of a competitor of Neil, and so I watch him and try to crush him on certain keywords so I can reach out to him and brag about it. But yeah, I'd say Neil Patel is somebody that I've looked up to, once again, just because of the model that he built of inbound marketing through content. I thought was kind of phenomenal.
Great. If somebody's starting their marketing influencer today, what do you think? What the first thing they should do? Reach out to you, or what?
I mean, I've got a course coming out, so yeah, you reach out to me. I mean, it really comes down to the foundation of what you need to build there. I mean, if you want to be an influencer in the marketing space, it's never too late to start. People are always like, oh, I should have done this a year ago. I hear that in real estate because I do real estate as well. Oh, I should have bought a house 5 years ago. It's like, buy a house today and it's still going to go up in value. If you want to be a marketer today, start doing your marketing stuff, get your website up. That's another thing. If you're putting all your effort into Facebook and LinkedIn and all this other stuff and don't have a website where you actually should be selling stuff and monetizing, everybody, that Instagram, all these, they're always going to be changing the algorithm and changing stuff. You have to have your own website. So if you're a marketer, you want to be an influencer, start with your website, and all the other social channels should be driving to your website.
Perfect. So we'll put the link to the course on the bottom of or top of this post, whatever it may be. So to summarize, guys, we have Shane Barker. Shane started his digital marketing journey since he was 3. Now he's 23, as you guys can see. Shane has an amazing. Shane has grown his SEO footprint very heavily to 125 plus uniques per month just by pushing great content. Also, Shane has a very good kind of influence in the influencer world. So if anybody's starting influencing, doesn't matter if you're B2B or B2C, the first thing is Identify who's the right influencer for you. So do your homework. Don't work with just one influencer and put all your eggs in one basket. Just diversify and work with few influencers. You can use some platforms like grin.co and influencer.co to find some of these and help you with the search. Have a negotiation kind of process in place and an offer that's going to make sense for the influencer, so you're ready to have a discussion and you actually have the value up front. Last is to identify your KPIs, so you have everything that you need in place, whether it is a mention that you're trying to boost, whether it's sales, so have these all up front before you get started. And finally, you can take Shane's course to learn more about influencer marketing. Shane, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Richard.
Pleasure.